What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the latest episode of The Layup.Line. If you're new to the channel, my name is Dolos, and I have a special guest here with me today to talk draft. I have Aneesh Namburi, who is a scout, a writer, a coder with Pro Insight. He does great work there. So, absolutely go check him out at Aneesh Namburi at Twitter. I'm going to give you the floor. Do you want to talk about anything that you have coming out, kind of promote your work a little bit?
Um, yeah, first of all, appreciate you having me on. Like has been said, you can, if you would like, follow me on Twitter at Aneesh Namburi. Follow everything we do at Pro Insight. We have a bunch of content, media, a lot of behind the scenes work, but we have some stuff that I think is really interesting for the rest of you. And I have a series called The Blueprint, which is my personal theory idea on team building, roster construction, and data science, kind of that intersection. And it's finishing up, but I think it's really an interesting exercise. So check that out if that's the kind of stuff you're interested in.
Yeah, it's extremely fascinating. I love the articles, and I generally and pretty much in agreement on you with a lot of the archetypes that you favor. So I think we're gonna have some interesting discussions about the selections that Oklahoma made in this draft. So just kind of starting with the first pick that they had at 6, they selected Josh Giddey. Initially, I did a pre-draft prep to this, speaking with the Oklahoma City beat writer. If you haven't seen that video, absolutely go check it out. I'm gonna link that below. But Thunder fans were pretty much expecting James Bouknight or Scotty Barnes to be picked here, and depending on who you ask, Josh Giddey was projected more around 8, 9, 10, perhaps 7. 6 was a bit of a shock. So I want to get your feel for this. Is Josh Giddey at 6 a reach?
In my opinion, no. So I don't think, first of all, I don't think that gap between 6 and 10 is wide. So I completely understand someone, maybe if he was consensus 9, 10 or whatever, reaching a couple spots early to grab him, just because I think the delineation between the players in that tier is pretty thin. Do you want me to get into Giddey's game now?
What skills do you think that really put him above Bouknight or Barnes for the Thunder?
So I'd say the biggest thing is his playmaking. He is, if not the best passer playmaker in this draft, he is top 3. It's, in my opinion, it's him, Cade, and Sharif Cooper. And especially if you have someone who can do that at 6, I want to say 6'8", 6'9". It's one of the, in my opinion, one of the safest floors of players to get in the draft, because especially if there's at least some ancillary skills, it's really tough for the guy not to fail. So if you combine his playmaking and he's pretty raw in other areas. He's number one, he's only 18, but he is pretty raw in the other areas. But from what I've seen in Adelaide and then NBA Global Academy the past year, all his other deficiencies are pretty workable and a very manageable, like, quote unquote, weakness for him to improve.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm curious, could you power rank your opinion on the fit for Giddey, Bouknight, and Barnes with this Thunder roster? Like, who do you think would have been the best addition to what they're doing? Or is it Giddey?
It was Giddey, Barnes, Bouknight. That's the order I have them in my on my overall big board, but yeah, I don't think the Thunder specifically changed that just because of how little shape there is to their team currently.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Something that I think is going to be a pretty prevalent storyline or narrative around Giddey is what position he's going to play. And as fans, I think we can go a bit long about position with the league being so positionless, but it still matters and it's relevant for defensive assignments and the lineup and rotation decisions his coach can make for who plays around him. So to start, is Josh Giddey a point guard?
It depends on just the point guard, first of all. But I think he could be a facsimile of a point guard. I think assuming the Thunder keep Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think he is a perfect secondary guy to play off of him, where Shai is your primary scorer and maybe not your primary facilitator, but he's getting the highest usage. But I think Giddey is a great potential option to be that secondary guy.
Okay. I asked the question really because Ben Simmons's recent playoff underperformance has given me some concern about forcing big playmakers into that point guard position because of how high the usage is on ball in that spot. Do you have those same concerns about Giddey?
Yes and no. I think the difference between Simmons and other big playmakers is that Simmons doesn't really have much scoring gravity, specifically in the half court. Mm-hmm. And I think there are avenues and scenarios where Giddey doesn't get, I'm not going to say the level of Simmons creation creation gravity in the half court, but I think there are avenues where that's not really a strength of his, and teams can kind of play against that. But I feel fairly confident that he can get there. He's a pretty good fin at the rim and is able to get to the rim using his size. And despite him being pretty skinny, he uses his body pretty well. So I think as you add strength, he'll improve in that. Like I said, the passing makes it tough to help off his to help off his teammates. So opens up driving lane and scoring avenues for him. And then especially as the NBL season moved on, you could really see him improve confidence shooting wise. Mm-hmm. He was, I don't have the numbers. I don't have the numbers on me, but it was a stark difference to where you see him really just like taking, it was a little bit more off the catch early on, and it was a little bit more hesitant. And then as the season went on, you could see more pull-ups and taking a little bit more audacious attempts, which is good to see. And you could see, and the percentages rose with it. Like the overall, I want to say he was either at 30 or a little bit below 30% three, but the indicator showed some real improvement, some real promise. And if he cleans up a little bit of his mechanics and form and all that kind of stuff, I think the jumper could be real good. And then the last thing is the handle. He's not like, so there are some people who compare him to LaMelo, which is going to happen because they both played NBL and they are both really good passers. But I think the difference between him and LaMelo is that LaMelo is a lot more shifty and flexible with his hips. And I think in that way, Giddey is actually a little bit more like Lonzo. And so he'll just need to improve on that handle. It's just about improving that hip flexibility to a reasonable level, because he is 18. A lot of the times, kids that age don't have hip flexibility just because it wasn't really an emphasis early on. So I think the jumper, getting his body right overall will kind of shore out the rest of his game and could really make him a real creator.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Who would you say your comps are for him? Because I'm not a draft guy myself. I've made that clear on this channel, which is why I went and got one to feature on the show with me. But just watching his tape, he gives me like tall Ricky Rubio vibes. I've also heard the Joe Ingles comp for him, which I think is interesting. And like his passing vision is really good. That was one thing I did notice, that, despite whatever struggles he may have as an on-ball creator, he noticed defenses. Like he pays attention to that when weak side, if you're sinking in to maybe, cover one of his teammates posting up, things like that, he will find his shooters in the corners. So that's great skill. I agree. Like that playmaking is going to be, his strongest skill set coming into the league.
Yeah, so I kind of undersold it because I was kind of focused on his other games that have a little bit more variance to them. But his passing is like I said, one of the best in the class. Like you said, he's very good at hitting those kickouts. He's really good in transition, throwing deep passes from the backcourt, and can hit cutters. I'm not going to say it's pretty consistent, but the level of flash that he shows on different wraparound passes or dump off passes when he's driving and the defense steps up and he hits his bigs is really, really crazy. So he's the passing is, in my opinion, going to translate is so good, and that's the reason why he was picked this early, because like I mentioned earlier, like the passing at that size plus the avenues for development in other areas makes it such an intriguing bet. And in my opinion, it's tough to see him fail because he has such easy avenues of development along with that standout skill. But yeah, sorry, to answer your question. I would honestly say like a cross between LaMelo and Lonzo. I would say Lonzo was a bit less audacious as a half-court passer. And I think Giddey has a little bit more creation to him due to the size, due to the he uses his strength a little bit better than Lonzo and is able to get downhill a little bit better than Lonzo. But then LaMelo has the handle, the shift, all that kind of stuff. So that's I kind of give like a middle point of Lonzo and LaMelo.
Okay. Well, I've been wondering with Giddey's weaknesses in his own self-creation, the on-ball defense can be suspect, and some questions about the jumper. I think I agree with you on the fact that it seems like there was a mental aspect to his shooting that was missing, because when I watched his film breakdown that he did with ESPN's Mike Schmitz, that's something he spoke to, that he didn't really have the confidence in his jumper early on, but as it did start to come along, that he started to take bolder attempts and felt more comfortable pulling. But I think his weaknesses do kind of lend themselves to bustability, like the athleticism difference. He's not like a great athlete. He's not a great on-ball defender. He's not a great self-creator. Which one of those weaknesses do you think is most important to improve over the course of his rookie year to really gain confidence about him hitting his ceiling in the league?
Apologies. Could you run through those list of stuff again? You cut out for a second.
So I was saying Giddey has weaknesses with self-creation, on-ball defense, and a questionable jumper. Which of those weaknesses do you most want to see him improve over the course of his rookie year to really gain confidence about him hitting his ceiling?
I would definitely say the jumper. It's going to be tough for any rookie to be good on defense, and I think finding on-ball defenders are. I don't want to overrate, or I don't want to underrate them. But finding on-ball defenders is fairly easy, in my opinion, especially if you have two very, very good offensive potential offense, or you have one very good offensive creator in Shea, and then a potentially good creator in Giddey, and then obviously you have Lou Dort, who could be who's a really good point of attack defender. So, and the thing is that Giddey's has potential to be a really, really good help defender. Mm-hmm. So, and it's tough for, again, players who are that smart and that should be real liabilities at that level. Like, for example, I don't think anyone is saying Luka Doncic is a good defender, but he's so big and it's tough for teams to attack him. And same with on a lesser level, Joe Ingles, and you could even see LaMelo in his rookie year. Not to keep bringing the comparison to LaMelo, like he was bad, like a rookie should be, but the size and the IQ made it better than what people were expecting. So I would say the on-ball jumper is going to be really important, especially because the Thunder, at least in their quote unquote projected starting lineup, if he's a part of it, they're a little bit lacking in shooting. So maybe getting that jumper specifically off the ball, because I'm assuming Shea will have a heavier burden of the creation reps. So I think getting that jumper off the ball, something he seemed to struggle with specifically early, is I think the most important for him early on.
Yeah, to be honest, I think I kind of really like that LaMelo comp on defense as well, because I think I saw a lot of discourse about LaMelo's defense over the course of his rookie year. And yeah, he was not good on ball. Even off ball, there was times where he's ball watching or falling asleep. But he has that IQ, he has that feel. He knows when to tag and dig down to get a steal or to deflect and get out in transition. And that's something that Giddey was good with as well. And he had a lot of steals. And so I think that's something that'll be interesting to watch with Josh Giddey in his first year. But transitioning into Tre Mann a bit, to not to spend all the time talking about Josh Giddey, when they selected him, it made me at least consider whether Oklahoma should hold on to Kemba for at least until the trade deadline, because I think that he could really be a good mentor for him, just to help him round out his passing game a bit better. What do you think of that?
I think it's probably good both from it's an on-court and off-court perspective. One, it gives Kemba's stock kind of dipped a little bit, and gives him a chance in a new environment where it's less where he can be. He'll have a little bit more creation burden. Obviously, I talked about Giddey as like a secondary creator. Kemba's going to be the current guy, but I don't think anyone expects him to be there long term. But yeah, just showcase his value. And then in addition to what you provide on court, he's a former All-Star. He's still extremely talented. So I feel pretty confident in that fit and benefiting both Kemba and the Thunder moving forward.
Yeah. One thing that stuck out to me about the Tre Mann selection is the number of guards that he's going to have to try and leap in the rotation. There's going to be SGA. I'd consider Dort a two guard. There's Giddey, who could potentially play minutes at guard, Teo Maledon, Ty Jerome, and potentially Kemba Walker. If his pull-up shooting doesn't seem to be enough to keep him on the court, what do you think is the best area of improvement for Tre Mann in order to do that, whether it's polishing his catch and shoot threes, better decision-making on ball, or the defensive awareness for him?
So I did hit on it. Those are the three areas where he's going to need to improve. The issue is those are three areas that it's tough to see improvement for him, because like off the ball, it's very clear at Florida, in my opinion, that he very good on the ball player, but especially in his freshman season at Florida, he really struggled playing off guys like Andrew Nembhard and Noah Locke and Keontae Johnson, and he came off the bench and really struggled in that setting. And he's never really been in a setting where he's played off the ball. So he's going to need to learn to do that and generate some more playmaking, because most of his playmaking right now comes off his scoring gravity and it's more basic reads. And so just finding ways to be a little bit more of a ball mover and stuff like that. And then defensively, I don't love his tape, to be completely honest. I would project him mostly as like an off-ball defender. He probably won't get crazy picked on, but he's still pretty skinny and not a great wingspan at 6'4". So I could see him getting hunted. And that's kind of, so while I love I do like Tre Mann talent. He's one of the best pull-up shooters in this class, and that's an elite. And with that combined with size and some playmaking instincts, that's a really interesting bet. But with the Thunder, where you have so many on-ball creators, it's tough to. He's going to have to start working off, and that's going to be, in my opinion, that's going to be a little bit of a struggle to start with, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Okay, from my brief watch of film on Tre, something that stuck out to me was that he's a score-first player, and his passing was more reactive. And it came when defenses had already cut off his initial move or they forced him to pick up a dribble. I want to ask, is that assessment fair and accurate? And is there anything that you could see the team doing offensively to simplify reads for Mann and just kind of lift that burden? Or is it more on him to just improve his feel as a facilitator?
Totally. No, I 100% agree with that. And like going into, I talked about my Blueprint series, and I have his profile pulled up, and and some of his comps are Dylan Brooks, Ryan Arcidiacono, Ron Baker, Demetrius Jackson, these are all of them, Kai Bowman, Jacob Evans, Tim Quarterman, and Malcolm Brogdon. So it's a bunch of secondary ball handlers, but outside of Brooks and Brogdon, and those are guys that don't really fit his size profile at all, guys who I wouldn't say you feel too great on in the NBA. Because they never really, for whatever reason, didn't have the athleticism, skill, off-ball equity. They weren't really able to stick in the NBA, right? And so I think things like having him, he's pretty comfortable in the pick and roll. So maybe having Shea or Kemba operate a primary action, defense helps. They kick it to Trey, and he runs a secondary action off of that, where he's attacking the basket easy, or can get a secondary screen where he can get to that pull-up jumper, but have it off an advantage, right? Because there is a pecking order, right? And I don't think, and it's fair for anyone to say that Tre Mann will be getting crazy amount of usage over guys like Kemba, like Shea, even the other young guards that they have with them. Lou Dort was starting to get some more on ball reps as the year went on, and then they do have Teo Maledon, and they do have Ty Jerome. So who's 2-3 years into his NBA career. It's tough to see. It's tough to see how Mann will get those on ball equity. So yeah, things like. And he never really showed much stuff as a cutter and off-ball relocator, but maybe that's just because he never really adapted to it his freshman year. But maybe after a year of development at Florida, where he learned how to do it, maybe it translates to OKC, maybe it doesn't. But I think that's what you really have to look at. Just him being a little bit more of a relocator along the perimeter, a little bit more decisive with his decisions, attacking off secondary looks, and then actions, maybe having Thunder run him off of like flare screens, where he can attack off that in different secondary pick and roll action and different secondary actions, and then trying to incorporate some pick and roll off those secondary actions.
And I do feel the need to mention a move Oklahoma City made on draft night that I really liked, and that was acquiring Derrick Favors, and they got a future first to take in his salary. I really like it because I think Oklahoma City didn't really have any bigs that I trusted, and I really like Derrick Favors as a screener, and I think that will do wonders for helping Oklahoma's guards create separation when running the pick and roll. Because with a guy like Giddey, he doesn't have the greatest self-creation, as we discussed. So having a screener who could create advantage and really like eliminate the defender, and now he has space for the pull-ups, he has space for the floaters, things like that. And then with Tre Mann's pull-up ability, if Derrick Favors is getting rid of the defenders, that's wide open space for him to pull up into. That's handoff plays that can be run. If they hadn't added Derrick Favors, I was pretty suspect on their big rotation, because I'm looking at it, and Isaiah Roby and their other selection, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, probably would have been their best screen and rollers on the team. So, we can start transitioning into Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. What do you kind of project as the role for him first year? Is he going to be in the G League, or do you see him actually being on the roster?
Actually, before we move to JRE, real quick, sorry to go back to Mann. I think something that I neglected to mention, but I really shouldn't without mentioning, is Tre Mann has one of the, if not the best handle in the class. He's really shifty, is able to piece together multiple moves, and uses that off of his pull-up shooting in order to make himself a really, really dynamic shot maker. And even if he doesn't develop into like that guard creator, he can be he has the potential to be a really good low usage scorer based off that handle and that shooting. Just really wanted to say that. Okay. To JRE, I think just based on how the Thunder seem to develop guys this past year, and given JRE's profile, it seems more likely that he'll start with the actual pro team. Again, no, I don't have any sources to that, anything, but that's just my guess. Jerry's calling card is his basketball smarts, his basketball decision making, his positional strength, and so those are kind of things that. And the things he needs to work on is basically improving his shot and adding a little bit of athleticism, and those aren't really the kind of stuff that's really going to change between G League and NBA in terms of specifically working on the shot and getting reps there. And when he's already a good position defender, has good positional strength, and is such a smart player, I find it tough, especially given OKC's context of how they're rebuilding. I find it tough to believe that they're not going to keep him on the actual team. And also, he was the 32nd pick. Yeah, 32nd pick. So, like, it's not like it was pretty close to a first round pick. And usually once you get into like the 40s, 50s, when you start seeing guys go to the G League. 30s is like a fairly certain bet to stay on the team.
Okay. Well, one thing that really stood out to me while watching tape on JRE is his passing feel, his vision. I'm just wondering, want to throw it out. Are we going to miss out on anything with his offensive upside given his low usage? Because he does have some post up ability. He's got some nice touch around the rim. Could we be seeing more if he had a bigger role, or do you think this is about perfect for him given the athleticism issues and the 3-point shot is, while it's developing, I believe he shot 28%, so that's something that still needs to improve even more.
So I don't think so. I think a lot of advantages came off of different actions at Villanova where they'd get the defense moving and then they'd throw them into the block. Mm-hmm. And number one, I don't really love the post up as an avenue for offense outside of, really specific examples in the NBA today. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Jerry fits that because we'll get into it. I don't love his scoring gravity as a whole. And I think that kind of limits his playmaking. So kind of getting into it. So I think he's a really good ball mover and has some potential in the short roll. But the issue is that there's nowhere, in my opinion, right now that NBA teams will really be afraid of him in terms of scoring. He has a good mid range, but in terms of role players shooting mid range, most teams aren't really going to be crazy worried about that, right? Even if he shoots them at an efficient standpoint. And I don't think I don't think right now he has enough gravity from three where teams will really close out on him. And I don't think he seems a little bit more comfortable in the mid-range rather than the three. So I don't think he'll have a crazy percentage from three as well. And then I don't think he has enough bursts to get to the rim and use those closeouts from 3-pointers to attack the rim and score off of that, or even have gravity in the role where he could potentially utilize his playmaking so much. And I think that's where it's a little bit tough for me to understand because like you have a guy who's like, yeah, he's a good like mid-range shooter, but our team's really worried about that. Not really, especially if it's from like a fourth option. And then if you can move the ball, but you can't really score again, like you can see Ben, like a really like blatant example, Ben Simmons, like teams just kind of sagged off of him and let him do his thing. And he doesn't have the athletic profile of Ben Simmons where he can be like an explosive, like cutter, finisher, all that kind of stuff because he is 6'7". Let me double check. No, he's 6'9". I apologize. Yeah, he's 6'9", doesn't have great vertical pop. So it's tough to see what he does. He's really going to have to improve his shot, expand it to the three, and be more comfortable and take a larger diet of it. And then hopefully that can get defenses to bite on him a little bit and use that to kind of accentuate his passing gravity.
Yeah, I like that about him. I think he's a good connective piece. He gives me some Kenrich Williams vibes, who's already on that roster. So could be another good addition. Their last selection with the 55th pick was Aaron Wiggins, who's a third-year player. When players go this late in the draft, they're very easy to fly under the radar because more times than not, they don't end up sticking in the league. With a guy who is a third-year player, how much run do you think he's going to get with the team, or is he more of someone that should just be in the G League for now, where he will actually be able to get some minutes and then maybe be a rotation player next season?
Yeah, he's more of a G League guy to me. Basically, the TLDR of Wiggins is he has a very, very good NBA frame, and it took him a little bit of time. He finally seemed to have gotten a consistent jumper the second half of his third year at Maryland. Okay. And he's very strong and he has very good length and size and all that kind of stuff. And the hope is that you can make the defense more consistent and then work on the shooting and then maybe even add a little bit more to his game.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to ask which swing skill will probably be most important, but it sounds like for him it's going to be the shooting.
Yeah, just making that consistent. So let me pull up. I know he had like a promising freshman year at Maryland, and So he shot 43%. Oh, sorry, 41% from three on 4.4. Just for context, that's 11.3 3-point attempts per 100 possessions and a 3-point of 59.5, which is, a lot of shots is worth that. So the hope is that he could take a leap the next year, but he kind of dipped in a lot of areas of in his overall efficiency, dipped down to 30 to 32% from three on 5.4 attempts, and then from 87% free throw shooting his freshman year on a small sample, albeit to 72%, sorry. And then last year at Michigan, he started out a little slow again, but then had a really good, seemed to use his size a little bit more, finally finished over 50% from two for the first time in his college career. 3-point percentage came up to 36, and then even took a little bit more free throws. Free throw rate went from basically sub 0.2 to 0.214, which isn't a crazy bump, but there are incremental improvements.
Okay.
Well, and shooting 77% on that. So it seems to have rounded out a little bit. And so the hope is that shooting maintains, because it was a pretty small sample because it was just the second half of the season, and then he had a really good combine, pre-draft process. So the hope is that kind of player that you're getting, and then the physical tools can kind of help him mold into a really good and versatile defensive player.
Yeah, I like to hear it. I was a bit concerned about them taking another guard, given the logjam that they had. It doesn't feel like there's a very realistic path to him getting significant minutes. So I personally would have preferred selecting a big in that range. Is there anyone that you think just kind of late second round pick or undrafted free agent that they could keep an eye on for big man prospects? Because the project that was in Oklahoma City was kind of Moses Brown, and then they even just let Tony Bradley go. So as much as young talent as this team is finding, is there a big man here that you think could join this core?
Let's see. So I think, first of all, it's important to understand that a lot, especially if you get late in the draft, a lot of it has to do with, players choosing, I'm going to choose to go undrafted because I want to pick my spot rather than be and bet on myself rather than get a certain deal, or it's an agent favor, so different stuff like that. So there's a lot of factors, and I haven't really looked at the who's been signed and who hasn't yet.
Okay.
But a couple guys that I think are interesting flyers to look at. One is Matthew Hurt from Duke. He's 6'10", I want to say, and one of the best shooters, especially at his size. And he has a little bit more scoring game to him, but basically the idea is he's 6'10" and can shoot the heck off the ball and do it in very versatile ways. And so that's obviously something that could be really interesting if he can, improve his hip flexibility because he has really high hips, and overall not really a 5 defensively. But if they could find a way where he could become competent defensively, that's something really interesting. And then a very, very minor name, or not minor name. How do you rephrase that? A couple other fringy names, I guess, is Onu and Jay Huff. Jay Huff is 7'2" and can stretch the floor and and is a very good drop rim protector. He's very old, not much upside. We don't know how that translates to like Virginia, where the scheme is he's kind of the scheme, to OKC, where he's probably not. He's probably the fifth guy in terms of defense. Like, okay, you're the guy cleaning up for everyone. We'll see how he translates to NBA athleticism and how much he can improve at 24. I think that's all he is. And then EJ Onu, he played at NAIA Shawnee State, but he shot threes that I want to say 40% clip, and he was a former track athlete, so there's maybe some untapped potential. Right now he's more of like a straight line run athlete, but maybe that can kind of expand to some more hip flexibility and defensive coverage, different defensive coverages, and then translate to a little bit consistently to rim protection, drop coverage, all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to be quick because I know these are just the chances are that OKC gets none of these, but just a couple of names that I would look at.
Okay. All right. I've really appreciated you joining the show. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I just have one last question. In my first official episode of this series, I did a ranking for the Thunder's entire roster, and I ranked them into three separate tiers. My first tier was the Untouchables, which was just SGA. He's the only piece I consider untouchable. He's a core piece of what they're doing. In that second tier, I have considered more building blocks who are projecting to be key pieces of a good Thunder team when that eventually materializes. In that tier, I have Lou Dort and two guys I think I could go in the tier below this. I'm kind of high on them, Darius Baisley and Teo Maladon. That last tier, I consider boomer bust prospects who could turn out and might not. Poku and essentially the rest of the roster is there. First, I want to know just kind of your take on those tiers. Is there anything you would change? And then just where do the selections from this 2021 draft slot for you?
Um, so I agree with everything. I understand why you have Poku in the boomer bust thing, but I feel fairly confident based on what he showed in his rookie season that he's going to stick in the NBA in some way. Mm-hmm. Just because like he was able, obviously he was arguably one of the worst from a like pure on-court perspective and numbers perspective, all that kind of stuff. But the ability to show the flashes of both passing, scoring, and even a couple of defensive plays while seeing such a significant jump in competition. I think he was playing like basically second division Greek league last year and being one of the youngest rookies if not the youngest rookie in the NBA is something interesting. So I would put him in there, but in that second category or tier, I guess. But I completely understand. Like I understand like the rationale of why you have it based on how you've kind of created your tiers. But then, so I would have Giddey in that second tier, along with Dort, Baisley, Maladon. Again, I just find it really tough to believe he won't stick just because of his size and his playmaking. And like I've mentioned before, I think his skills have fairly decent avenues to improve. I would put Trey Mann in that third category, that boomer bust category, because it's like he's going to need to, I believe heavily in his pull-up shooting, but he's really going to need to develop some other counters to his game, some other secondary skills, or else it's going to be tough for him to stick in the league. And as well as JRE and Wiggins as well, because JRE, he's going to need to shoot and he's going to need to improve as an athlete just because he is a little bit limited to who he guards right now, despite his really smart instincts on the defensive end of the floor. And then Wiggins, he's a 50 something pickup. I apologize, I don't know off the top of my head. So you put him in that third tier as well. And then just real quick, just wanted to say, I just can't believe I forgot to mention this. I've actually do have scouting reports on Trey Mann and Jeremiah Robinson-Earl on perspectiveinsight.com. So it's called Scouting Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, Scouting Trey Mann. So go check that out. It's like a little bit more information into it. I get into their games a lot deeper.
Okay, yeah. Make sure you are going to check out Aneesh's Twitter. Make sure that you are following him, following Pro Insight, reading the articles, because it is very informative stuff. I really enjoyed this conversation. It taught me a lot. I hope it, informed the audience as well. Are there any last words, anything that's coming out soon that you want to plug, or is it just kind of relaxation time now that the 21 draft is behind us?
I don't know. Yeah, kind of. I'm just trying to, keep on work. It's not really a relaxation time in terms of draft. It's a little bit just because I do start school in basically a month now. So just, preparing for that. And then also just trying to find different other avenues to continue to grow as a evaluator, analyst, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Paul, thank you. Really appreciate you having you on. Really appreciate you having me on here. I really enjoyed it, and I don't know why you wouldn't, if you're watching this and you don't follow this account, follow this channel. It's YouTube, right? Follow this account and channel. Go subscribe. Go watch the videos. It's really, I've watched a few of the when he first acted me. I watched a few of the videos and they're really good, and I would really recommend them highly. So yeah, go check all this stuff out. It's really good.
Really appreciate the support. Thank you everybody for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.